When I opened the letter from my mother, I thought it was an olive branch, but it turned out to be a knife wrapped in ribbon. The envelope was cream-colored with a faint shimmer, thick like something you'd use for a wedding, not for a quiet betrayal. It had my name on it in my mother's looping, expensive cursive. That alone was enough to make my stomach drop. My mother didn't write letters unless there was a performance involved. She called when she needed something. She texted when she was pretending to be kind. Letters meant spectacle. I turned it over twice before opening it. For one dumb second, I let myself imagine something tender inside. Maybe an apology, maybe a truce, a holiday reach out. The soft side of my mother that only existed in my childhood memories. I slit the envelope and unfolded the card. It was a single sheet of high-quality stationery. We're having a dinner. Just the family. It would mean something if you came. December 16th, 6 p.m. Home. No love, Mom. No, we miss you. Just that. 5 neat lines written in perfect blue ink. It was signed simply, Mother. Mother. Not Mom. Never Mom. I stared at the invitation like it might change if I looked long enough. 2 years without a word. And now, what? A family reunion over pork roast and wine glasses? Was I supposed to pretend everything hadn't shattered the night of Brandon's wedding? I hadn't meant to remember that. But once the door opened, the memories spilled in, loud and jagged. The banquet hall, the toasts. My mother's voice cutting through the clinking glasses. Avery's gift got lost in the mail. I suppose that's what happens when you stop believing in responsibility. People laughed, lightly, uncomfortably. I didn't. I sat frozen at the white-clothed table next to a cousin who didn't meet my eyes and watched Brandon pretend he didn't hear it. Not one person defended me. The card in my hand trembled. I wasn't sure if it was from rage or some deeper grief I hadn't dealt with yet. Avery? Leah's voice broke through. She leaned on the doorway of the kitchen, coffee in hand, hoodie halfway zipped. You've been staring at that thing for 10 minutes. It's not a bomb, right? I lifted the card silently. She took one look and groaned. Oh, hell no. They did not just send you a dinner invite like nothing ever happened. I nodded. Apparently, dinner is the path to redemption now. She slid onto the stool across from me. What's the catch? That's the million-dollar question. You sure it's not a $50,000 question? She smirked, then softened when I didn't laugh. Leah had been there for the aftermath. She'd seen me pack up my life in one night. She'd watched me rip up the last check my parents ever sent, the one labeled support in the memo line. She'd talked me out of calling them every birthday, every holiday. She'd seen the bruises that didn't show on skin. I don't know what they want, I said, voice low. But if they're reaching out, it's not just for the mashed potatoes. Leah swirled her mug, watching me over the rim. You thinking of going? I didn't answer immediately. I looked around our tiny apartment. The walls were bare except for a bulletin board with sticky notes of deadlines. My laptop sat on the fold-out table next to a cracked window. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I used to think family love was permanent, I said. That even when people got it wrong, they didn't stop being yours. But that night, what she said, wasn't a joke. It was her saying, "You're not one of us anymore." Leah reached over and touched my hand. Maybe they want to make it right. I gave a dry laugh. Or maybe they want to make it final. We sat in silence for a long time. The city buzzed outside our window. Sirens, traffic, a dog barking. But in here, time stood still. Finally, I stood and went to my closet. I didn't have much to pack. Some warm clothes, the old notebook I still wrote ideas in, a second pair of boots. I paused before zipping the suitcase and added the envelope. Not because it meant anything, but because it reminded me why I couldn't show up naive. I turned to Leah. I think I need to see what this is. Whatever game they're playing, I'm not letting them play it without me. Leah sighed. Then promise me you won't go in open-hearted. No. I said, lifting the handle of the suitcase. But I will go in open-eyed. I walked to the window. The city lights blurred through the cold glass, and in the distance, a plane blinked its way across the sky. I rested my hand on the frame and breathed in the air that felt both sharp and familiar. If this is a trap, I'm not going in empty-handed. The dinner began with wine and laughter, and ended with a number, $50,000. The china sparkled under the soft lighting. Candles flickered in ornate holders shaped like reindeer. My mother always did know how to stage a perfect holiday dinner. Ambience so carefully orchestrated it could lull even the sharpest critic into forgetting they were being poisoned. Metaphorically, of course. Richard Shaw sat at the head of the table, carving roast lamb with the grace of someone who wanted the moment photographed. Eleanor poured the wine herself, swirling it into glasses with slow, practiced precision. Across from me, Brandon avoided my eyes by pretending to be deeply invested in his mashed potatoes. "So," Eleanor said, smiling like she wasn't already loading a weapon. "How's freelance life treating you?" "It's consistent," I replied, keeping my tone even. "I like the freedom." Richard raised his glass. "Freedom's good, but stability, that's better." Brandon let out a soft, awkward chuckle and immediately cleared his throat. No one else laughed. "I'm glad you came home," Eleanor said, still smiling. "The house misses your energy." I wanted to ask her if the house missed her passive-aggressive comments and conditional love too, but I bit the inside of my cheek and kept chewing. Midway through dinner, after the second round of wine and a compliment about the cranberry sauce that felt more like a business pitch than a meal, Brandon leaned closer and muttered, "You should know. They didn't call you back just for turkey this time." I froze. "What do you mean?" But before he could answer, Eleanor clinked her glass with a silver spoon. "Everyone," she said brightly, "we'd like to take a moment to discuss something important." Richard cleared his throat and folded his hands like a banker about to deliver a loan denial. "We've been thinking about the support we gave you during college, specifically the $50,000 we wired you for tuition and expenses." I blinked. "Support? You mean the graduation gift?" Eleanor's smile didn't budge. "Well, at the time we didn't want to make you feel obligated, but now that you've gone your own way, it feels appropriate to revisit the matter." Brandon stared at his wine like he wished it would swallow him. "So this isn't a dinner," I said. "It's a transaction." Richard leaned back, his voice calm. "It's an opportunity for you to make things right." Eleanor placed her napkin delicately on the table. "We offered that money because we believed you'd come back and work in the family business. That was the unspoken agreement. You've chosen a different path. And that's fine. But it's only fair you repay the amount." My mouth went dry. "You never once said it was a loan." Her eyes narrowed just slightly. "We didn't think we needed to. Because if I said no back then, I would have been the ungrateful daughter." Eleanor's smile tightened. "You're twisting this." Brandon finally spoke, just a whisper. "Maybe we should talk about this later." Richard cut in. "It's not a threat. It's a boundary. If you won't respect the sacrifices we made, maybe you don't need to be part of this family anymore." My fork hit the plate with a sharp clink. "Wow." Eleanor folded her hands. "Avery, if you don't pay, you're no longer a child of this family." The room fell deathly quiet. I stood, chair scraping sharply against the hardwood. I looked at her, at all of them. And for once, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. "Thank you, Mom, for confirming." Her face twitched, but I didn't give her the satisfaction of staying to watch her recover. I walked toward the foyer. The house felt colder now, though nothing had changed. It still smelled like rosemary and fake forgiveness. At the door, I paused. Brandon stood just a few feet away, silent, eyes low. I waited. Just a second. Just long enough for him to say something. Anything. He didn't. I opened the door. Maybe silence is also a form of betrayal. I thought I was being chased. It turned out to be a cover for a debt I didn't create. The rain tapped against my apartment windows like a slow, impatient knock. I hadn't unpacked the suitcase. I wasn't sure if that meant I hadn't really come home, or if something inside me just hadn't settled yet. Leah sat across from me on the couch, legs tucked under her, arms crossed tight. She was watching me like I was a candle about to tip. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "No," I said, "but I'm awake." She nodded like she'd been waiting for that answer. I handed her the now creased dinner invitation from 2 weeks ago, along with the notes I'd jotted during the meal on a napkin in the car. Half of it was scribbles, the other half was pain trying to form a plan. They said I owed them $50,000, I said. But here's the thing. I never signed anything. There was no agreement, verbal or written. And I remember that Mom called it a gift. I think I still have the email. Leah sat up straighter. "That's your leverage." "My what?" She pointed toward my laptop. "Find the email. Find the words." I didn't hesitate. My inbox was a mess, but I knew how my mother signed her notes. Always full name, always sent from my iPad. I typed in gift and college, filtering by year. And there it was. Subject: congratulations. Body: this is our gift to you. No need to worry about paying us back. We're proud of you. Don't let money stress you out. Signature: Eleanor Shaw. I let out a short breath. Not quite a laugh. Not quite relief. Leah leaned over. "Forward it to yourself. Back it up. Print it. Frame it. Tattoo it if you have to." I stared at the screen. It wasn't about me. It never was. "What do you mean?" They didn't want the money back because they needed it. They wanted it because they needed someone to blame. Someone to carry it. Leah was quiet, then said softly, "Your family doesn't need a rebel. They need a bearer." I nodded. But I'm done being that. Later that afternoon, we met Charlie at a quiet corner table in a coffee shop that still had pumpkin spice specials on the board even though it was nearly Christmas. He was older now, fuller in the face, but still had that banker's way of speaking like everything had a decimal point. "Still writing poems in margins?" he asked, grinning. "Still dodging taxes for the wealthy?" I shot back. He laughed, then leaned in. "Okay, what's this about?" I handed him the notes and watched his face shift as he read. "Brandon," he said after a pause. "He's not doing well. He applied for a line of credit through a shell company a year ago. Bad investment. Tech fund that evaporated. I heard your parents covered part of the loss. Quietly." "With what?" "With a withdrawal from something called the Shaw Family Growth Fund. It's meant for generational support. College, health emergencies. But nothing's official on paper. That's why they're playing this like a loan to you. It's cleaner." I swallowed. "So they took money from a family account, bailed him out, and now they're framing it like it was mine to return?" Charlie gave a sympathetic shrug. "They're moving liabilities, Avery. On paper. But to the heart? That's where it cuts." I thanked him, my hands tighter around the cup than I realized. Back at home, Leah made tea. I opened the drawer with all my saved junk. Old chargers, expired coupons, tangled cords, and found the flash drive I hadn't used in years. I backed everything up. The email, the receipts, and then I opened my phone to check voicemail, just in case. And there it was. A message from Eleanor, time-stamped less than an hour after the dinner. Her voice was syrupy sweet, but I could hear the crackle under it. "If you don't comply, we'll call it a loan. You'll see what people believe. We've always been good at narrative, Avery. Don't make us tell the wrong one." I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. I saved the recording, renamed the file. Their truth versus mine. Then I opened the voice memo app on my phone. I hit record. My voice was calm, clear. They thought I would stay quiet, but this time they'll have to listen to me. There are some revenges that don't require a sound, just the right timing and irrefutable evidence. It started with a folder, not a dramatic one, Just a plain manila folder that I labeled Truth in black marker. Inside were printed emails, a transcript of my mother's voicemail, screenshots of the family funds transfers Charlie had helped me locate, and a copy of the so-called loan document, which of course didn't exist, because there wasn't one. I'd always thought revenge was loud, dramatic, a slammed door, a shouted confession. But this was different. I didn't need a stage. I needed a signature and a witness. Leah leaned over the kitchen counter, phone in hand. Denise will see you at 11. She's blunt but terrifying. You'll like her. She deals with cases like this? I asked. Leah smiled. She's made men cry in mediation rooms. By the time I stepped into Denise Carter's office, I was ready. Nervous but not shaking. I carried the folder like it weighed nothing, like I hadn't spent a lifetime letting its contents crush me. Denise was in her early 50s, crisp suit, hair in a no-nonsense bun, eyes like surgical steel. She didn't shake hands, just pointed me to a seat and said, "Tell me everything in 3 minutes, then I'll tell you what we're going to do." And I did. I talked fast but clear. No tears, no trembling. She didn't interrupt, just flipped through the email, the voicemail transcript, the fund withdrawal evidence. When I stopped, she looked up. "They're bluffing. You have the paper trail. The voicemail is gold. We're not just going to stop them. We're going to remind them what happens when people weaponize family for leverage." Denise drafted the letter that afternoon. It wasn't emotional. It was sharp, clean, brutal in its precision. It outlined every piece of evidence. The 2018 email stating the money was a gift, the voicemail proving intent to manipulate, and a notice that further claims would constitute defamation. She included a clause offering to drop the matter if they ceased all attempts at collection and issued a retraction. It ended with a sentence I would have paid money just to frame. "This office strongly recommends your clients reconsider their definition of family loyalty in light of the documented abuse of trust." We sent it by email. Certified mail followed. That night, the silence was louder than the confrontation had ever been. No angry responses, no threats, just quiet, controlled, tense. Leah sat with me on the couch, flipping through Netflix titles we wouldn't watch. "This isn't over," she said softly. "I know," I replied. "That's why I'm not done." The next morning, I opened a fresh document. It wasn't legal. It was a letter, an invitation. I wasn't inviting them to talk. I was inviting everyone else to listen. I listed every extended family member who'd ever been present at Brandon's wedding, anyone who had heard my mother's public comments, anyone who'd sat in that room silently. I typed, "This Saturday at 3 p.m., I'm hosting a family meeting. I will be presenting documents, timelines, and facts about the recent financial dispute between me and my parents. You are not required to come. But if you do, you will hear the truth, and you will choose who you believe." The subject line, "Not a fight. A reckoning." I hovered over send. Then my phone rang. It was my mother. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, another call. Same number. This time I answered. "Avery." Her voice cracked, the way it used to when she was furious but trying not to sound hysterical. "Are you trying to smear us? Is that what this is?" I held the phone tighter. "No," I said, calm as steel. "I'm clearing my name." A long silence followed. She didn't hang up. I did. Then I returned to my laptop, attached the guest list, hit send. "This Saturday, I'm going to get the whole truth out. You can choose who to believe." No one goes to a party to be unmasked, but some people need it to wake up. They arrived in waves. First the cousins, wide-eyed and overdressed, unsure if this was a reconciliation or a firing squad. Then the aunts and uncles, smiling too wide, bringing wine and stories from back when the kids were still sweet. They sat at the long table like it was Thanksgiving, glancing around as if waiting for someone to stand and start carving the truth. I stood at the head, not holding a knife, but something far sharper. The restaurant was neutral, elegant, high-ceilinged and hushed like a courtroom with dimmed chandeliers. I'd chosen it carefully. No one would yell here without being overheard. No one would storm out without making noise. Richard and Eleanor entered together, hand in hand, like the king and queen of a show I no longer subscribed to. Brandon followed 3 steps behind, dressed impeccably but sweating through his collar. He avoided eye contact with everyone, especially me. "Thank you for coming," I began once they were seated. "I know this isn't the usual holiday gathering. I asked you here because there's been a misunderstanding that's become too large to leave unchecked. And I'm tired of silence being mistaken for guilt." Eleanor smiled thinly. "We're here in good faith, Avery." "I'm sure," I said. "Let's start with facts." I opened the folder and passed out printed copies to everyone. Emails, financial statements, and a transcript of the voicemail. 2 weeks ago, I was told I owed my parents $50,000, that it had been given under the expectation I would join the family business, that my decision to live independently was a betrayal. Soft murmurs rippled through the table. An older uncle frowned at his copy. A cousin's brow furrowed. "But in this email," I continued, tapping a highlighted section, "dated June 1st, 2018, my mother wrote, 'This is our gift to you. No need to worry about paying us back.' That was sent right before my senior year of college. I didn't ask for it. I didn't negotiate terms. I received it as a daughter." Eleanor leaned forward, chin high. "That email was written during a different understanding. Context matters." "Exactly," I said, lifting my phone and tapping the speaker icon. "So let's listen to some." The room went still. From my phone, her voice poured out, "If she doesn't comply, we'll call it a loan. You'll see what people believe. We've always been good at narrative, Avery. Don't make us tell the wrong one." A silence fell that didn't breathe. Then, Richard's knuckles went white on the table's edge. Eleanor pushed back her chair. "I won't sit here and be accused of—" "You're free to leave," I said calmly. "But the evidence stays." She froze, eyes darting across the table, realizing that walking out now would say more than staying ever could. I turned toward the rest of them. "For years, I thought the shame was not being able to repay the money," I said. "But the shame is using money to buy control of a child, to tie expectations to love and debt to obedience." I reached into my bag and pulled out a second folder. This one was labeled Brandon. "This is a record of my brother's financial activity over the last 3 years," I said, flipping it open. "Loans taken out under shell companies, one of which defaulted on a $250,000 investment. The Shaw Family Growth Fund, intended for education and emergencies, was tapped to cover it. Not me. Brandon." Brandon shot up from his chair. "You're a hypocrite," he shouted, voice cracking. "You think you're better than us?" I didn't flinch. "And I'm a living, breathing debt," I said, smiling coolly. "Aren't we both just liabilities, Brandon? Only difference is, I kept the receipt." Gasps. A fork clattered. An aunt whispered, "Oh my God." No one defended him. No one stood up for our parents. They were too busy reading, listening, watching the narrative fall apart in front of them like a stage set collapsing mid-play. And that was exactly the point. Freedom is not when you leave home. It's when you don't want to come back. The morning light filtered in like a secret, soft, golden, and quiet. It brushed over the hardwood floor, touched the corner of my old bookshelf, and settled on the coffee mug Leah left behind last night, still half full. It was the first Saturday in weeks without a plan. No documents to print. No inbox fires. No guest lists or lawyers or dinners laced with motives. Just silence. I stood by the window in my pajamas, a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, staring out at the frost-laced rooftops of Seattle. The cold didn't bite today. It reminded me I was alive. Behind me, my laptop pinged. I almost didn't turn around, but something about the tone, brighter, cleaner than the usual buzz, made me move. The subject line was simple. "Welcome to the Harper and Gold family." I blinked. then opened it. Dear Ms. Shaw, we're thrilled to offer you the position of Associate Editor, beginning January 8th. Your portfolio shows not just technical excellence, but a voice we deeply admire. We can't wait to bring it to our shelves. Harper and Gold. The dream job. The one I'd applied to 3 years ago before my parents told me it was beneath someone with our name. Before I believed them. My hands didn't shake this time. I didn't double-check for fine print or worry that someone would take it away. I closed the laptop slowly and smiled. The past used to live in every corner of this apartment. On my desk, in my inbox, folded into the creases of old letters shoved in drawers. It was time to let it go. I pulled out a small storage box from the closet. Letters from Eleanor. Holiday cards with passive-aggressive notes. Printouts of family bank statements. Handwritten apologies I'd never sent. I added my own notes from those early days, when I still thought exposing the truth would earn back affection. I carried the box to the fireplace, struck a match, and let paper turn to light. Some pages curled quickly, others resisted. The last to burn was a photograph of my parents and me from years ago. We stood outside our old house, smiling too hard for a camera none of us wanted to be in. I didn't feel pain watching it vanish. I felt space open inside me. Avery Shaw was no longer theirs to edit. I hung one thing back up, a photo of me at 8 years old, holding a crayon drawing of a dog with wings. I'd drawn it for Brandon. He'd said he loved it. I believed him. Back then, we all told stories that sounded like love. Now, I knew better. The front door creaked open. Leah stepped in with a paper bag and no apology. I brought real croissants, she said, shaking off snow. The overpriced kind with crumbs that disrespect the laws of physics. I grinned. Good. I need disrespectful carbs today. She looked around, saw the empty box beside the fireplace, and gave a small approving nod. You're really done, huh? I think so. She pulled out 2 pastries and sat beside me on the floor. Do you regret it? I thought for a long moment. The fire crackled. The air smelled like cinnamon and smoke. No, I said. In the end, I didn't lose anything. Just things that weren't mine to carry. She smiled. You should write that down. Might make a good memoir title. I laughed, for real this time. Later, after she left and the sky turned white, I zipped up my coat, wrapped a scarf around my neck, and took one last look around the apartment. It felt lighter. Not empty. Ready. I stepped outside. The wind slapped my cheeks, cold and honest. I didn't flinch. I locked the door behind me. Freedom is something no one can take back. The truth didn't just set her free, it burned the script they once forced her to read from. What they called family was nothing more than control wrapped in tradition, and Avery had the courage to name it. Because sometimes justice doesn't arrive in courtrooms, but across dining tables, behind closed doors, and through quiet, relentless resolve. Like a storm that arrives without thunder, the reckoning came. And it stayed. If this story moved you, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe. Then tell me your thoughts in the comments below.